Hello. Week. We'll give everybody a minute. And I think, all right. We'll just give everybody a minute here to get in. Here's my paid advertisement for seltzer water. I have here LaCroix. Beautiful. Welcome, guys. Just going to duck over here a minute. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's see. I have my you can see the corner of my lamp here. Good morning, Sandra. It's 2 p.m. Howdy ho. Did you just wake up? Wonderful. Did everybody get a chance to read through the whole chapter this week? Do all your activities. I had a pretty good week. I noticed something this week. So the first week was about, oh yeah, here it is. Almost. Good morning. Jeremy just woke up. It does feel like morning. I've just been kind of having a nice relax. Oh, thank you. Okay, first of all, this dress has pockets. Check this out. Woohoo! Best dress ever. So one thing that I noticed is that my emotional journey is actually coinciding with exactly what the book says. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but let me read this off and we'll kind of think about it here. And it's at the beginning of each chapter where it says what to expect on the gray sidebar. So week 1, right here, it said, this week initiates your creative recovery. You may feel both giddy and defiant, hopeful and skeptical. The reading tasks and exercises aim at allowing you to establish a sense of safety, which will enable you to explore your creativity with less fear. And so that I noticed that I started to get a little bit more of a flow with my ideas, a little bit more confidence, I guess. And then last week was really interesting because it says, this week addresses self-definition as a major component of creative recovery. You may find yourself drawing new boundaries and staking out new territories as your personal needs, desires, and interests announce themselves. The essays and tools are aimed at moving you into your personal identity, a self-defined you. And I know that, I believe it was Zandra said that the first week, actually I think all of you guys said the first week that it made sense for you. And last week especially, this whole idea of self-definition and drawing new boundaries, staking out territories, defining your personal needs, desires, and interests. I in fact had to do that this week. It was actually Monday I realized that I wanted to start wearing a mask at work. It was really hard for you. Yeah, I decided I wanted to start wearing a mask at work because I work with the public and it's recommended. So I ended up, starting to do that. And it was really hard for me because, everybody at my work is doing it. And there was that emotional kickback from being the only one. Mwah, mwah. Can you hear my kissy noises? How? I mean, circle of loading doom. No. Oh no. Nope. It's saying an error occurred. Jeremy has me. Are you guys not in the same room? It's back for you. Refreshed, got you now. Perfect. Yeah, no, I totally was wearing a mask everywhere except for work. And so nobody at work was doing it. And so I decided to do that. And that was kind of hard for me because then I was like, I was the only one doing it. And what was it? Defining my personal needs and desires is what I ended up doing. And I felt extremely emotional about that too. Zandra, you said that you had a lot of stuff going on. It would have been hard anyway. But even with this, it kind of felt like it kind of stirred up more emotion for me. Is that how you felt? That it would have been hard anyway, but it was still emotional. Anybody else want to weigh in on that? And so now it comes to the place where what we're actually doing is this check-in here. How did you feel about your morning pages? Were they helpful for you? I noticed, obviously, that, there were things that I needed to define and take action on, and then I did it, and I felt huge relief from it. So was there anything that you took action on because the morning pages brought it more to light? Like you're kind of like listening to yourself a little bit more? Let's see if you guys can hear me. So anyway, that was just my experience. And then I'm going to look in here. I wanted to highlight some of these rules of the road on page 55. This is in chapter 2 for our review. So it was rules of the road. Some things that really stuck with me that made an impact for me is show up at the page, use the page to rest, to dream, and to try. And I found myself really being an emotional support for myself in my morning pages. I allowed myself to talk about things that maybe I would have wanted to just brush under the rug and not acknowledge. So there's a lot of me acknowledging my emotions to myself. And then as the week went on, there was a lot of self-support, like cheering myself on. Like, especially today, I noticed that my morning pages, I had this like, wow, you're doing good, like cheering yourself on, like, to release while I was at my easel working on my art, which actually we're going to touch on in this next chapter, and that's fear and shame and, judging your own art instead of just letting it flow and then moving on to the next thing. So we'll touch on that more. But the other thing, rules of the road as an artist, is remember that it is far harder and more painful to be a blocked artist than it is to do the work. And remember that it is my job to do the work, not judge the work. So those really came up for me a lot. I was working on this painting. I experimented on one corner and it didn't really go the way that I wanted it to. So I kept working on it, trying to get my experiment to work rather than just saying, oh, that didn't work, and changing direction. So I kind of realized a little bit later than I'd prefer that I wanted to change direction, and, you know, just my experiment didn't work. Fine, let it go. So there's a little bit of acknowledgement of that for me. And then, did anybody, and then going over the tasks that we did anybody have a favorite task from last week that you did? Was there anything specific that you really enjoyed doing? So I'll go ahead and start. Again, you don't have to do all the tasks. I did a list of where does my time go, and I listed off all the things that, I guess it was 5 things that most of your time goes to. And I was actually pretty pleased with it. The only thing that I might want to do less of is getting high and watching TV. Or maybe, you know, getting high and watching TV when I'm done with something that I want to do. But also, it's okay to take a day off. So that's probably fine. And, you know, you list some people that are really encouraging to you, that give you really good feedback. Oh, the where does your time go? Yeah, I thought that was really cool, because then you can sit down there and itemize and be like, this is what I'm actually doing, and compare it to, like, this is what I'd like to do. And that kind of goes with number 7, the life pie, where you take a circle and you divide it up into 6 areas, and you label it with play, spirituality, exercise, friends, romance, adventure, and work. And you kind of mark on there which one that you are really happy with and which one that you'd like to improve. So those two kind of went together for me. So that was cool. And then number 3 on the list was listing out 20 things that you really enjoy doing. So I listed out actually very easily quite a few. I got 15 easily, and then I had to think really hard for like the last 5. But one thing that's cool about that is it says if you list off the 20 things that you like to do, you can use that for your artist date that you do once a week. I actually did an art. Yeah. Number 8 was your favorite. Number 8 was, the 10 tiny changes. Y'all, from that I noticed I spend too much time watching TV and being on my phone. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's okay to like do those things, but it's so easy to let that time span stretch into other things, like, you know, maybe you're on your TV and on your phone when you need to be sleeping. So setting time limits on those things maybe. And also not beating ourselves up for doing that. So number 8, the 10 tiny changes. I had a hard time with that because my brain goes to 10 large changes. So I think that was a really good exercise for me as well. Was there anything that you wrote down, Zandra, on your 10 tiny changes that I would like to? That I would like to do it this way. I would like to blank. Yeah. Well, you were right though. It was number 8. It was 10 tiny changes, but you write it out as I would like to meditate daily. I would like to draw daily. I would like to paint daily. Cool. Nah, makes sense. Was there anything off your list that you wrote down that you would like to do that you actually ended up doing? Uh-oh. Okay, so am I on? Sorry, guys, my connection decided to tell me that it was a little unstable, so hopefully you can hear me. Was there anything that you did that you want to share that maybe you wrote down? Like I went for a walk at the park and I took some pictures. That kind of seems to be my kind of favorite artist state, is just going out and just seeing things, just noticing small details of my environment. You know, I wrote down some artistic things that I've been neglecting, like I've been spending all my time. Yay, I'm on. Zandra says one of her finish more projects, and Jeremy helped me finish fixing a lamp that has been disassembled for 6 years. Yeah, that's a long time to have an unfinished project. But I definitely have projects that have been sitting for that long, so I completely understand. It's a 1.5 foot sculpture of a mermaid with dolphins turned into a lamp. How cool is that? Jeremy learned how to wire a lamp this week. Congratulations, you guys. I hope you got it all set up in a really cute place. You get to appreciate it now. Oh, so I ordered light bulbs for my lamps. I have a Google phone, and so I got a store credit, and I really wanted to get those smart lights, the ones that color change. And so I actually ordered those this week, but I didn't have to pay a dime for them because I had a credit on my Google account. So I'm doing some lamp stuff too. That's really funny. So how did your morning pages work for you guys? I know that I kind of went over how they worked for me. Did you find that you're talking to yourself a little nicer now? Maybe being your own little cheerleader through your morning pages. You know, like I said, like so far this week, the morning pages helped me discover, you know, what it is I actually desire, you know, listening to myself. Like I wrote down some things that maybe I'd rather not think about that were bothering me that ended up actually being productive. Just acknowledging to myself that this is what's going on was productive. And the relief of admitting to myself certain things was nice. So that's how my pages went. What were you guys surprised to find yourself writing about? Jawa says they helped, but I skipped 2 days this week. That's okay. I missed a couple days too. I know I'm like leading this, but I still am on the same page as you guys to a certain degree. Oh, I wanted to read what Bob, so I like my little Bob Ross journal because he says there's like quotes and stuff in here. And yesterday, the quote in this journal says, if we all painted the same way, what a boring world it would be. And I thought that was really cool because I was kind of like struggling with the fact that the way that I paint is different than other people. And anytime you're creating something, it's vulnerable, right? So, you know, you always got to really root out like what kind of negativity are you saying to yourself. So well, that was cool. Thanks, Bob, for the support. Did you guys have any other issues this week? You know, did you do your artist week? Or I'm sorry, did you do your artist date? Sandra says, I kept having nothing, but not like I can't think of anything. It felt more like I had run a car into the Berlin Wall. I kept having nothing. Do you mean like you can't think of anything to write? And it's okay to just sit there and write, you know, I don't have anything to say. I'm not sure what to say. My mind isn't in this, you know, I'd like to get up. I'm feeling stir crazy, this, that, or the other thing. That's okay. I mean, you just write, I have nothing to write. Yeah, nothing to write. I've got nothing to write. You know, I had a couple days where, like one day I wrote about what I was going to do that day. So it's saying my connection is unstable. So one day I wrote about what I was going to do that day. And then the next day I wrote about what I did the day before. So it was almost like I wrote the same thing. Yeah, lots of feels, none of the words. That's what painting is good for me too. Like I like to paint because sometimes like the act of painting tells me how I'm feeling. It's kind of an expression in itself. Lots of feels, none of the words. Just, yeah, that's familiar. Like you're just like this bottle full of something and the lid is on it and you can't quite describe anything about what's going on because there's so much. Yeah. Yeah. So what I thought was interesting is that the 10 tiny changes, that was your favorite, Sandra. 9 and 10 were directly correlated with that. So so number 8 is write down, I would like to blank. And then 9 is select one small item and make it a goal for this week. And then number 10 is just do that goal. So it was really funny that it goes all hand in hand. So one thing that I did, let's see, what did I do? I painted almost every day this week. I drew almost every day this week. I took a walk. So if anybody has anything else to go over, go ahead and shoot it in the comments. Otherwise, let's get into week 3. Week 3 is going to be this upcoming week, and I'm going to go ahead and read right here in the sidebar what to expect. I'm sorry, Zandra. Oh, do you have any good ideas for artist dates in quarantine? I skipped that this week too. Yeah, so one thing that I've been doing is like, is there anything creative that you've been wanting to do? For me, I went to school for 3D video game art, and I did stuff with motion graphics and 3D modeling, and I love doing that, but I haven't touched it in like quite a while, like months. So one of my things is I'm looking back on creative stuff that I know that I enjoy doing, and just watching a tutorial on it. That's one idea for artist date. Going and you can order a book, like a photography book of some, or you can look at photography online. Go online to stock images and Google a feeling, whatever it is you're feeling now, just Google it. Bored, love, lonely. Go into like gettyimages.com or istock.com and just Google, just search for words. Why is Google now synonymous with search? It's like a brand. But go to a stock image site, even Flickr, and just look at images and until you find something that is inspiring to you. You watch too many tutorials and you don't actually follow along with them, Jeremy. So yeah, Jeremy, maybe something for you would be just pick one and follow through with it and recognize to yourself that this is practice and do it exactly as they do in this tutorial, and then just do it all in one sitting and allow it to be garbage. Practice, practice, practice. That's something that I want to do, is quantity over quality. You learn. Yeah, but when you put into action, it's another type of learning too. Does that make sense? You watch too many. I don't think you can watch too many. Maybe you just need to look at your pie chart of how you spend your time. Jawa wanted to try watercolor. He even got the supplies for it, but ended up not doing it. I'm mainly into music, but I wanted to try visual art. Zandra, make mistakes, but paint fast. Yeah. Yeah, so like just allow yourself just to create something and let go of what the outcome is. Jawa, I know watercolor is a little bit different. I like to try my hand at watercolor. I tend to be heavy-handed if you're talking to like a traditional watercolorist, because I'm used to doing acrylics, but it's still fun for me to get out and do that every once in a while. I just, set aside an hour and just use a big brush and fill your page and just let it be whatever it is. Joe would do it. Yeah, other artist date ideas. It can be as silly as like watching a music video. and being inspired by something that somebody else creates. Pinterest is really good for that. Don't worry if you bought it and don't use it. I bought supplies that has taken me 3 years to open and never regretted it. Right, yeah, like I've got a storage unit full of art supplies. I don't regret having them. What I regret is not carving out the time to do it, which is an easy fix. If you just do it. It's that action, right? The action is the hardest part. That initial starting action is the hardest part. And yeah, having stuff that you would like to use is really an opportunity, because then you don't have to go out and get it, right? Like, so one of the things that I do for myself is if I want to start a new project and I'm feeling inspired and I'm like, wait a minute, I have these 3 other projects and these supplies that I went and bought for it and I never started it. So it's like I do something where I alternate. I'll start something new and then I'll finish something that I've already started, and then I'll do something new and then I'll finish something that I started. And so that's a good way to maintain that balance, because you can still do new things, but you're still completing projects that you've already had in the backlog. Sandra says, heck, for one of my dates, I want to have a drink on my lawn just because it's not something I have ever done. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't even have to do with art. So your artist date can just be something that you want to do that you've never made the time to do for yourself. I think that's why I've got so many projects. Yeah, the rotation's great because I had like all these paintings backed up and I was just like, dude, I had paintings that were unfinished for like 3 years. And because I had a stack of so many, one time I was like doing a meditation, and at the end of the meditation, I was like, oh my God, I know how to finish that one painting that's been in the closet for 3 years. And you know what? I sat down and I painted on it for 8 hours and the thing is done. So sometimes your skills and your vision needs to catch up with the piece that you started. And so it's okay to just sit on a project and know that one day you're going to come back to it. But I think being mindful of making the time to do projects that you've already had, like my rotation idea has been really helpful to me. Jawa says, thank you. I think that'll be my goal for this week, just to mess around with the colors. Zandra says, Jawa, I bought paints to literally make color blobs. It's rad. Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Yeah, and like taking a walk or going on a bike ride or even watching a movie that you have a particular interest in. Like a lot of my art is fueled by subject matter. So like I really like sci-fi stuff. I really like post-apocalyptic dystopian stuff. I literally watched Mad Max Fury Road this week, and the process of just watching that movie filled my creative imagery. Right? Like, so the artist date is about allowing yourself to do things that you wouldn't normally allow yourself to do, because it actually does fill your creative well, even though it doesn't seem like watching a movie is directly correlating with it. So yeah. All right. So circling back to week 3, looks like you guys are good. So circling back to week 3, we're going to experience unaccustomed bursts of energy and sharp peaks of anger, joy, and grief. You are coming into your power. So we've already established self-care, we're defining ourselves, and now we're coming into our power this week. And there's a couple of things that are going to happen. We're going to notice some anger, we're going to notice some synchronicity, and we're going to be facing shame. So we'll start off with anger here. I thought that was this week, or was that just me? Well, we were kind of talking back and forth between week 3 and week 2. Because we were kind of circling back to the art estates and stuff. It's a fluid conversation. Anger is a voice, a shout, a plea, a demand. Anger is a map. Anger shows us what our boundaries are, and anger shows us where we want to go. Oh yeah, the anger is week 3. Did I say week 2? Yeah. So a lot of times, like how our body feels tells us what we internally need, right? So if you're having anxiety, sometimes you just need to let go of everything and meditate and just get centered. No, you didn't say week 2. Anger tells us, what our boundaries are. Like if you get mad at something because somebody's crossed the line, maybe you need to set a boundary. Here's some more examples. This is actually really cool. She lists off a couple examples. I can't believe it. I had this idea for a play 3 years ago, and she's gone and written it. This anger says, stop procrastinating. Ideas don't get opening nights. Finished plays do. Start writing. Another example is, blast him. I could have made a better film than that. This anger says you want to make movies. You need to learn how. So our emotions can tell us what our next action needs to be. You can either sit there and wallow in the emotion, or you can take it as a message for what my next logical step is. And then there's a quote here. Duke Ellington says, I merely took the energy it takes to pout and wrote some blues. I went through a breakup last year, and in January, I was emotional about it. And, I texted my mom and I was like, I'm sad. And she just texted back, paint your feelings. And you know what I did? And I made some really cool paintings because of that. Anytime I was sad, or anytime I had these emotions that I wasn't able to deal with, or I didn't know how to deal with them, that was what I used as my rule of thumb. This is what I need to do. Paint your feelings. Sorry, there's somebody outside my window. It's just weird. So paint your feelings, right? So that's my message. Whatever your outlet is, do that. A lot of times, if I'm angry, in order to get through to it, I need to have some sort of physical activity to exert that overwhelmment. So kickboxing is really good for me for that. What are some things that you guys do when you have an emotion that you need to process? What is helpful to you to process your emotions? Just something to think about. So anger tells us that we can't get away with our old life any longer. It tells us that our old life is dying. It tells us that we are being reborn, and birthing hurts. This hurt makes us angry, right? So you see something that you want and you don't have it and you're upset. Or you see something that somebody else has and you want that thing and you're upset. Okay, well, action. You can take action to get what you want.
I found a few locations for action near you. The first one is voter action at 2366 East Lake Avenue East, number 311.
Oh my God. That's ridiculous. It wouldn't shut up. Oh my God. I can't wait to get my smart lights. Make my Google go. No, it's Google Home. My MacBook, though, it has Siri on it, and I never use it. And sometimes it'll just pop up and I get so upset because I'm like, dude, wasn't even talking to you. Just leave me alone. I got Siri. Okay, anyway. That was really funny. Anger is a tool, not a master. Anger is meant to be tapped into and drawn upon. Used properly, anger is useful. She was making a pun. It will always tell us when we have betrayed ourselves. It will always tell us that it is time to act in our own best interests. Anger is not the action itself. It is action's invitation. So that's anger. We're gonna all brace ourselves for that this week. And then synchronicity. This is really cool. I think that this is really cool. Synchronicity is by far something that I have been pleasantly surprised with this year and probably the last 6 months. The more and more that I have been acknowledging my feelings and taking actions towards them and speaking up, using my voice, believing in myself, the more and more that's happened, the more and more opportunities have been coming my way. So with synchronicity, you get what you ask for. And with that comes the responsibility of follow through or action. Or effort of doing the thing. Have you ever said you wanted to do something and then been given the opportunity? And did you do it? So often I'll say that I want to do something and I have the opportunity to do it. And these last 6 months to a year, I've really been taking more action. Actually, the last 2 years, I've taken quite a bit of action. And just the opportunities that come to me when I say that I want something, like, it's crazy. Here's a little example that she gives us. A woman admits to a buried dream of action. Is already saying that weird? At dinner the next night, she sits beside a man who teaches beginning actors. So, like, I decided that I wanted to do more B2B sales or business to business sales for my painting workshops, because I host painting and creative workshops that, I sell individual tickets to. Well, I decided that I wanted to sell a whole class to one company, as a work event, right? So, like, if a company purchases a class, that's one sale for the same amount of effort, whereas if I filled a class with individual ticket sales, that's 30 sales. So there's a huge difference in effort there. And I wanted to maximize my results to my effort ratio. Jawa says, I think I have a small burst of anger that I need to resolve in healthy ways. Siri wants in on the Artist Way chat. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think when you're angry, I think acknowledging to yourself like what it is that's actually going on is really important, and realizing that you can't control anybody's actions but your own, right? Like, so whatever everybody else does, like, that's their thing. You can only control what you do. So, if you're upset about something, really getting down to why and what is it that I can do. And if I've decided that there is something that I can do and I don't want to do it, then, like, acknowledging the fact that I just become more and more exasperated because of that. If you're not taking that action to remedy whatever it is you're angry about, whether it be somebody saying something to you that you're upset about and not being able to come to grips with that emotionally, maybe that's something that, you can do there. Tangents. I also wanted to read this quote, and I'm going to change the word from God to universe just because that's my personal preference. The Work of the Chariot, I guess this is a book. When a man takes one step toward the universe takes more steps toward that man than there are sands in the world of time. And the universe will reward you for taking risks on its behalf, Shakti Gaiwan says. Okay? Also, in that regard, we've got another little excerpt here. Anyone honest will tell you that the possibility is far more frightening than impossibility. Anyone honest will tell you that possibility is far more frightening than impossibility. That freedom is far more terrifying than any prison. If we do, in fact, we have to deal with force beyond ourselves that involves itself in our lives. Then we may have to move into action on those previously impossible dreams. Right? So like, you're not tied down to anything and you're just floating a lot here alone in the universe, and there are things that you want to do, and you can choose to like propel yourself towards those things that you want, or you can choose to not because you're afraid. Sandra says, that's like where the red fern grows. You gotta meet God halfway. Ooh, I haven't seen that movie in so long. That was like a tearjerker. You gotta meet God halfway. Yeah, so if you say that you want something and you're presented with the opportunity and you don't take those steps to go because you're afraid you're not good enough, or you're allowing beliefs that have been instilled in you to stop you, this is huge. This is huge. I have gone from being afraid to talking to people. Like literally, I was scared of people to I'm like hosting this live stream and talking about my emotions and connecting with others. And, you know, I've spent like the last 3 years really networking and meeting people and learning how to have conversations with people. So yeah, you know, if there's something that you want to overcome, you have to do your part. You got to meet God halfway. Oh yeah, so like synchronicity, right? So this apartment that I'm in, it really was like I found this apartment while it was being built, and I really wanted to move into it. And it was about over the course of like 4 months. And, you know, I had looked at the floor plans and I was like, okay, it's kind of small, but it's kind of exactly what I want despite that. And I was like, wait, I don't really have that much stuff. So the synchronicity part of it was once I finally got the dimensions for this floor plan, I measured all of my furniture. Everything just fit perfectly. It's insane. Like the ceiling was the perfect height I have this loft bed with storage above it. And in like a normal bedroom, the ceilings aren't high enough. So the ceiling was just high enough. I have these IKEA storage bins that fit that I've had for like 7-8 years, and they fit perfectly in the drawers in my bathroom. Like it's insane. There's like millimeters. These things fit perfectly. God, like it's amazing. Like this desk that I have and like everything, this rug and then my hall rug back there, I found them online and I thought that the colors were perfect. And finally I did like a little mock-up of my apartment and I measured the rugs and, you know, I made sure that everything would fit before I signed the lease, and the rugs fit perfectly, the aesthetic, like everything that I have gathered over like the last 10 years that I've actually held on to and kept moving and whatnot. It's insane. So, but I still had to get over my fear of the price of this apartment. I had to get over so many emotional blocks in believing that like, hey, I could do it. So it's very interesting. Just taking that step towards what you want can be really scary. But once you figure out that there's something that you want, if you don't take that step towards it, it's way more upsetting than it ever is to get towards your goal. Yeah, so every step towards what you want can be like the scariest thing in the world, but it's not any more scary than sitting there and looking back on your life and regretting, wow, I didn't do that. And that's what I have to keep reminding myself. Like, whatever happens, happens. You just gotta, you owe it to yourself to walk towards your goals. I don't know. Synchronicity. I've just, over the last 6 months, it's been accelerating. I say I want something and it shows up, and then all I have to do is take that, the step to taking it, right? Like, at the beginning of this year, you know, one of my goals was I want to be closer to, or I want, like, I've done all this effort to meet people, and my goal this year was to strengthen relationships. And that's having relationships with people and conversations with people and opening up to people is very vulnerable. So, you know, if there's something that you want, chances are there's an opposing negative belief that you also carry. And the universe will hand it to you. And the more and more you step towards it and release those beliefs and just say, I'm just going to do it, the better off it'll be. So, synchronicity, there's my blurb on that. Oh, I do want to read this. C.G. Jung dubbed synchronicity loosely defined as a fortuitous intermeshing of events. Back in the 60s, we called it serendipity. Once you begin your creative recovery, you may be startled to find that it's cropping up everywhere. So something to look forward to. The next subject is shame. So we have anger and synchronicity and shame. It's like a sandwich where the filling is the reward. The synchronicity is the reward, but you've got to eat the crust on your bread anyway. I don't know. Whatever. So my little thought on shame, I took an anthropology class, and if you've taken anthropology or sociology, you're familiar with the fact that shame is a tool. It's a social construct used to control individuals to fall in line and to behave and speak and think like everyone else. This was really helpful in like nomadic cultures. This is really helpful in all types of cultures for the survival of the species as a whole. But from an individual standpoint, you know, we are no longer reliant on our entire tribe to. Is that shame quote in the book? Oh no, what I just read was like what I wrote. So I wrote this down. This is how I view shame. A social construct used to control individuals to fall in line and to behave and speak and think like everyone else. So I wrote that because of my background with anthropology and sociology and psychology. I'm very interested in those subjects. There is a shame quote in here on page 67. It's about halfway through the page, and it says, shaming someone is an attempt to prevent the person from behaving in a way that embarrasses us. It also says, the act of making art exposes a society to itself. Art brings things to light. It illuminates us. And on page 68, it says, when people do not want to see something, they get mad at the one who shows them. So I just merely wanted to expand upon that. For the artists who endured childhood shaming, over any form of neediness, any type of exploration, any expectation, shame may kick in even without the aid of a shame-provoking review. If a child has ever been made to feel foolish for believing in himself or herself talented, or for believing that himself or herself is talented, the act of actually finishing a piece of art will be fraught with internal shame. So this is really something that I think that everyone can relate to, obviously on different levels. But, you know, I recently saw my cousin, and it's funny because he goes, I'm the black sheep of the family, and you're the psychedelic sheep of the family. I know, right? I'll read that again, you guys. This is insane. So my cousin says, I'm the black sheep, or he's the black sheep of the family, and I'm the psychedelic sheep of the family. And it's like, I've dealt with like a lot of this on like a lot of levels. And so it's really something that's like near and dear to my heart, is that you know, when I'm sitting here working on these paintings, I know Jeremy and I were talking last week about how, you know, there's a lot of projects that are sitting around unfinished. And I said, done is better than none. And that's something that I'm really wanting to focus on in my personal practice. No, my cousin said it in a very loving way. But the rest of the family, like, definitely, yeah. So, I mean, you're cool, but dude, psychedelic sheep. I mean, it's just kind of a funny little play. Like, there's always that one family member that you really connect with, and that's mine. So, very, very near and dear to my heart. Very accurate statement. You know, I'm the one with the bright colors, like the esoteric thinking, and, you know, a little bit of a backwards. Yeah, I think it's very funny. So, you know, shame is one of those things where it's like, that's why I have such a poignant view of it, you know, in that it's used to control people. So I think that everybody's dealt with it in certain degrees. And I think creativity as a whole, like, you're taught to fall in line and walk this way, and creativity is unlearning that and allowing yourself to play and allowing yourself to connect the dots between things that maybe aren't mainstream. I think the biggest form of creativity is connecting things that like previously haven't been connected. So very, very surrealistic view of it. Anyway, so not finishing your work, this is something that I'm wanting to focus on, because I'll sit there and nitpick something when really I just need to belt it out and move on, belt it out and move on, like not sit there and overthink it. So the quote in here is, many artists begin a piece of work, get well along in it, and then find as they near completion that the work seems mysteriously drained of merit. I know for me, like, a lot of times I'll be working on a painting and I'm like, I'm so sick of this. This just needs to be done. And oftentimes that I'm sick of this needs to be done can be the signal for me to stick it in the closet and move on to the next one. But one thing that I've been learning to do is when it says, I'm so sick of this needs to be done, that just means I need to put it in overdrive, belt it out, and move on and call it done. But back to the quote, it's no longer worth the trouble. To therapists, this surge of sudden disinterest, it doesn't matter, is a routine coping device employed to deny pain and ward off vulnerability. Yeah. Adults who grew up in dysfunctional homes learn to use this coping device very well. They call it detachment, but it is actually a numbing out. It is good. Page. So shame relates to, is that a quote in the book, The Detachment? Yes. So on page 68, Page 68, near the bottom, it says, adults who grew up in dysfunctional homes learn to use this coping device very well. They call it detachment, but it's actually a numbing out. And that's the point of, you know, saying, oh, this project doesn't matter. I'm just going to leave it off to the side and I'm just not going to finish it. So, you know, that's something that we can all deal with. Part of shame is criticism. So a lot of times, like, we're criticized about something and that's supposed to shame us into not doing it. But what's really important as an artist is learning who to listen to and when to listen to it. So, like, timing is really important when you're listening to constructive criticism. And also learning to comfort yourself. So I was a graphic designer for about 5 years for this company, and learning to really take direction from the creative director. And art is vulnerability, right? So you're going to hear some negativity, but like, learning who to listen to, right? It's like that quote from Brene Brown that I said last year. If you're not in the ring getting bloody, battered, and bruised, I'm not interested in your feedback. And I think being kind enough to ourselves to acknowledge who is worth listening to is really important. Jawa says, that's deep. There's probably hidden reasons why I quit projects that I didn't even realize why. Yeah, 100%. And as you read this book, so I think what's cool about doing the live stream before you guys go and read the book is that it kind of gets your gears going a little bit. And I think that's interesting to have the discussion before we read it too. So learning to comfort our artist child over unfair criticism. Learning to deny. We can learn not to deny and stuff our feelings. It's kind of like I was saying with my morning pages this week. I was writing stuff down that I didn't necessarily want to acknowledge, but then I felt better after I wrote it down. Where you're like relearning that it's okay to have feelings and to have opinions, and you know, you need to appreciate yourself for taking the time and effort to really get down and doing this stuff. By telling our shame secrets around our art and telling them through our art, we release ourselves and others from darkness. This release is not always welcomed. So again, you're going to get that pushback from the people that don't want to hear it. Because sometimes when we hear the truth, we get upset because we don't want to be faced with the truth. We want to just be ignorant. But so for that, like, a lot of I paint in several different ways. Sometimes I paint from a very graphic standpoint, in that I want my form and everything to be very precise. And then other times I'll paint just, a combination of emotion and form. And then other times I'll just straight up paint just because I'm feeling a certain way. And for the most part, my paintings kind of give people an emotion based on the painting itself. But for the most part, my paintings suggest movement and like almost like a churning or a constant flow. So a lot of times after I'm done painting, I'll realize what the painting is about. So for me, it helps me to realize what it is I'm feeling sometimes, which the morning pages actually help with too. So that comes with, by telling our shame secrets around our art and telling them through our art, we release ourselves and others from darkness. This release is not always welcomed. So a lot of times I've had people come up to me after I've done like an art show or something, and they tell me how that painting moved them. And like, it's so worth exposing yourself through your art you know, and you don't have to tell the complete story of your art to everyone, but, you know, I've connected with a lot of people through my paintings, and they've come up to me and told me very personal stories. And it's, there's something really gratifying in that you wouldn't have experienced that in any other way. So it's a very beautiful, beautiful thing. So, and again, just learning to tune out those critics that, you know, they don't have a right to live in your head. You get to decide who and what gets in your head. So dealing with criticism, there's a couple things in here that we can do this week, and you guys will go over them on your own. But some things that I thought were really helpful in dealing with criticism is jotting down notes on what concepts or phrases people have said that actually seem useful. Like one time a fellow painter told me that I needed to get a finer brush and get my details in there, and then it would be done. And, you know, it was an artist that I really respected. But it hurt to hear, because I was like, I thought I was doing the best that I could. But then when I sat there and listened, oh, you need a finer brush, I was like, oh, I guess I do have a finer brush. Okay, let me try this. And, you know, that was really helpful for me to actually listen to what that person had to say. And I respected them enough and their opinion enough to just get over myself and do that. So jotting down notes on what concepts or phrases seem useful that somebody said to you. And again, that was somebody who is an artist, who is creating, who I did respect, and who was taking the time to give me feedback. And I actually really appreciated that in the long run. And, you know, I ended up showing them the painting, and actually I ended up selling that painting like a week after I finished it. So taking criticism, it doesn't have to be a negative experience. I mean, it added a lot more work. Like I probably spent like another 4 hours on that because I ended up reshaping something before I went in on my fine detail, but I was ultimately happier with the end result. And so listening to other people can be really helpful if, you know, they've earned the right to do that. And you need to decide for yourselves. Let's see. Oh, Jawa, I already talked about that. So remember that even if you have made a truly rotten piece of art, it may be a necessary stepping stone to your next work. Art matures spasmodically and requires ugly duckling growth stages. I can 100% attest to this. You need to be making shit art, because making shit art is how you realize what techniques do and don't work. It helps you. I mean, even taking the time to warm up and do a drawing before you do a painting can ultimately help you. Exercises, artistic exercises have their place. They can plant seeds of creativity. They can show us new techniques. So making shit art is okay. I've made shit art. I've made art that I'm just like, I would just give this away to someone who wants it. As a painter, do you practice drawing a lot? I've heard it helps to practice drawing. So I was talking about this last week, Jawa. I wanted to take time to do one small drawing every single day because I haven't been, and it 100% impacts my painting. Paintings will take you a lot less time if you're spending less time massaging back and forth. So yes, drawing 100% makes painting go easier. And doodling in a sketchbook has its merits. You're improving the dexterity. So in painting, I'll often, like with a circle, I'll use my wrist motion. I'll just several ways that I'll use the paintbrush. When you're drawing, it helps to get you warmed up. It improves your hand-eye coordination so that you can look at the draw it and you'll be a lot more precise. And it's just the practice makes perfect thing. So yes, 100%. So I even noticed that today, that this week I was doodling and drawing, and different subject matter, textures, things like that, they can all be improved by practice. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Also, getting back on that horse. When you hear some feedback, that maybe you don't like, get back up and do it. Don't let that time grow between your practice. Make an immediate commitment to do something creative. Creativity is the only cure for criticism. And then there's a little quote here. Artists who seek perfection in everything are those who cannot attain it in anything. And that's Eugene Delacroix. Artists who seek perfection in everything are those who cannot attain it in anything. And again, it just circles back to those unfinished projects. Like, it's not going to be perfect, but you know, the more and more you do, the better and better you get. And there's something powerful in completing something and laying it to rest than leaving it uncompleted and saying, I'll get back to it later. Obviously, there's a time and a place for both of those things. But if you're erring on the side of, I'll get back to it later, you're going to find some sense of, what's the word? Where you feel like imposter syndrome can kind of take hold a little bit if you're not finishing things. And it's just like doing your laundry and not folding it and putting it away. It just piles up, and just looking at it can seem upsetting. So. Then we have a little exercise in here where it's like those surveys that people are doing on Facebook right now because everybody's bored, and so now they're like categorizing all their interests. Like, my favorite childhood toy was, the best movie I ever saw was, I don't do it much, but I enjoy. If I could lighten up a little, I'd let myself. So go ahead and answer all those questions this week and find out a little bit more about yourself, you know, and about your beliefs. After shame, we have growth. So growth is an erratic forward movement. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And again, that's circling back to, it's okay to make shit art. It's okay to experiment. It's okay to have exercises and just ultimately only be for practice. Growth occurs in spurts. Very often, a week of insights will be followed by a week of sluggishness. I did this huge art installation. I worked on it all of January. It released February 8th. I'll put the link in the video description below. But I did this giant art installation, and it was a huge accomplishment for me. And I got so high off of it. I was high off of it for weeks, like just the dopamine, just the satisfaction in what I'd accomplished. And after it was released, I had like a week of feeling like depressed because I wasn't getting that dopamine from, you know, being proud of myself and all that. But then I realized, oh, it's just because it's like a hangover, right? Like, I did all this cool shit, and now I'm like back in this nesting mode to where I'm recovering from all the energy that I expelled. A week of sluggishness makes sense, Zandra says. This week was my sluggish week. Jawa, word. Yeah, word, you guys. So this next week is going to be kind of like getting a fire lit under our ass, huh? So practice being kind to yourself in small, concrete ways. This is what we really need to pay attention to this week, is not being so hard on ourselves. Allow yourself to pitch out some of your old ragged clothes. You don't have to keep everything. Allow yourself to let go of things that are no longer good or supporting you. Allow yourself to just release anything. You know, I have over here a whole bunch of video. I'm trying to get them all hooked up. I'm at the point now to where I need to order some cords because now I have new technology merged with old technology. And so if I get it all hooked up and I go through it and maybe it's not so fun to me, I'm going to be okay with letting it go. I've had some stuff like that I've purged, and I have the tendency to hold on to certain things. But letting go feels good too. Back on track. If you do one nice thing a day for yourself, the universe will do 2 more. Be alert for support and encouragement from unexpected quarters. So I think that's really cool. If you do one nice thing for yourself, if you maybe even it's as small as simple as forgiving yourself for feeling a certain way, and acknowledging that you're human, and maybe you didn't do all your morning pages this week, Jala, but that's okay, and neither did I. But acknowledge yourself for the things that you have done, right? So it's reframing how we're looking at things. If you are doing something very hard, promise yourself a break and a treat afterward, right? So I feel a lot of times that if I'm not being, this is so random that this says this, because yesterday I literally told my friend, I was like, I feel like if I'm not being productive, that I'm doing something wrong. And what I really like about this is that creativity is often growing out of those times when we're not being productive. Like sometimes you sleep at night, and then it was like what I was saying. When I am doing something and I'm not actively looking for something that I've lost, and I'm doing something else, and then all of a sudden it comes up. And I realize, oh, I left my keys here. So we recharge, and allowing ourselves to do something nice for ourselves and relax and recharge, and even just treating ourselves to like an ice cream cone or something, or treating ourselves to a break after we've been working for 2 or 3 hours, and maybe we want to finish that project, but you deserve a break. You've been working for 2 or 3 hours. I think acknowledging that is constructive time. It is constructive to be nice to ourselves. And then we have a few tasks here for this next week. And the tasks, as always, we have our artist date, but it's like, describe your childhood room, describe 5 traits you like in yourself as a child, list 5 childhood accomplishments, taking a look at our habits. What habits do we have, like watching TV or staying on social media when we're supposed to be in bed? Jola and I were talking about that earlier. List 3 obvious rotten habits, and why is it that we continue doing them? Some rotten habits are more subtle: no time to exercise, little time to pray, always helping others, not getting any self-nurturing, hanging out with people who belittle our dreams. List 3 of your subtle foes. What use do these forms of sabotage have? And be specific. So I'll list one. I have this habit of always trying to make other people happy, regardless of how it makes me feel, and prioritizing other people over myself. So maybe as a kid that helped me, because if I made everybody else happy, maybe then I could slide on by and not get that negative thing happen to me. But as an adult, making everybody else happy in front of myself is counterproductive, because I'm an adult, I'm no longer in that situation, and there's no reason for me to do that anymore. So it's like negative beliefs. So really just nurturing yourself. Making a list of friends who nurture you. So there's several people in my life that are really supportive, and if I feel a certain way, I know that I can go to them and they're going to actually give me advice that is constructive and that builds me up. And maybe it's hard, but it's good to hear. People who support us again. And anyway, you know, it goes on. There's a list of 10 things that we can do this week. If anybody has any questions or suggestions, now is the time. Otherwise, that's all I have for you today. Oh. I guess what I can do is read some of these little quotes. I really like these. Whenever I have to choose between two evils, I always like to try the one I haven't tried before, Mae West says. So I really like that. If you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, go the direction you haven't gone before. That's a pretty funny way of dealing with things. Creative work is play. It is free speculation using the materials of one's chosen form. Creative work is play. It is free speculation using the materials of one's chosen form. Oh, I get that. Okay, so that's just like self-expression. Creativity is seeing something that doesn't exist already. You need to find out how you can bring it into being, and that way be a playmate with the universe. Saw that one. I've done that before. Zandra says, or put another way, repeating the same action and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. Exactly. So we all have our habitual reactions to things, and I think being more mindful about how we choose to react with the world around us, and maybe choosing action rather than just reaction. Zandra says, so yeah, between the two bad choices to the one you don't know. I love it. And on that note, I think that everyone has a good start to the week. Everyone's been following along really well. I'm really proud of you guys for doing this. I'm proud of myself for doing this. Like I said, I used to be scared to talk to people, and now here I am doing all of this, teaching workshops, meeting people. I've come a long way. So appreciate your accomplishments too. Yeah. All right, I'll give you guys a couple more minutes. Any extra thoughts? Jawa says, thank you for doing this. This takes a lot of courage. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, anybody can come on and watch this, and you're just like, oh, okay, well, welcome to my living room. Yeah, and thank you guys for joining me. I know I'm reading everything you say in the live chat in this video, so that's some exposure too for yourselves. And again, art is vulnerability, you know, you're learning to express yourself and be okay with what you have to say and learn and absorb. And yay! Thank you guys. Love you. Oh, we didn't have Kim today, I don't think. I don't know. Maybe she's lurking. I know we've got a few people in here. But yeah, no, I hope everyone had a lovely week. I wish you all the best, and be safe out there. Social distance. Bye. All right. Off we go into the wild blue yonder. Thanks, guys.